Alright, if you want to get those smooth, buttery lines in Procreate, Procreate. I don't even need an R. My lines are so smooth, I don't even need an R. Procreate. Alright, so I've been trying out some experimental things on YouTube, trying to see what catches and what doesn't. I did some with a different opening. I did some without me talking, just going straight to the video. Not doing too well, so I'm back. You have to look at my face and hear my voice. But anyway, for this tutorial is going to be lines. It's basically just how I go about doing lines for sketches, for illustrations, things like that. So that's enough talking. Let's get to some drawing. I don't know why I'm out of breath, but yeah, let's do it. Alright, how to get smooth lines in Procreate. So there's a bunch of ways to get smooth lines. Let me minimize that. I'm just going to stick with the Procreate pencil. I do have my faves, which is all the brushes that I usually use when I'm sketching and drawing, which are pretty much just stock brushes that I tweaked. But you can download those in the description. But for now, I'm just going to stick to, where was I? I'm going to stick to, was it sketching? Yeah, sketching. I'll stick to the Procreate pencil. So, of course, you can always do, I always do that. Of course, you can always do the straight line and hold, and that'll be straight. Same thing with the circle. Draw a circle and hold, and it'll straighten that out. And you can also, you hold and you can do all that kind of thing. That doesn't really help us much when you're sketching. So pretty much what I do is I hold my Apple Pencil really loosely, and when I'm sketching and drawing, I don't really put that much pressure down on the canvas. I also don't hold my fingers super tight. So I just so if I'm going to make a circle, I'll make it really light, like this, and then I do everything, if I'm drawing a character, then I draw everything from that, from that circle. So one thing that's really important is the faster that you can make the line, the smoother that it will be. If you go slowly, there's more of a chance for like imperfection. So if I was doing that line, let me make sure it's dark enough to see. So if I'm doing that line, I want to do it as quickly as possible to get it smoother. So I just sketched this before I started. The lines aren't very clean, but if I wanted to make these lines clean, then I'll make it really light and then make a layer above it. And we'll go with a dark brown. So I try to do everything in a section. So I try not to really go into that much fine detail when I'm making a sketch like this. So for example, I'll do this whole line as one. And even if I'm going a little bit outside of my sketch, that's okay. And then I'll do the lines really quickly as well. So this, see how this curves over his nose? So I'll try to do that in one swoop. And if I mess up, I'll go back and fix it. And I'll try to do everything in 1 or 2 strokes. So for his mouth, I'll try to do 1 runoff stroke. Let me fill this in. Okay, so for under his chin, instead of going like this, which is fine, I mean, you can do, I've been using Procreate for a long time, so I have a pretty good handle, but I'll keep my arm loose and pretty much try to do it in one swoop, and then I'll follow all these follow all those and flick the end. So what I mean by flick the end is I don't usually come to a stop like that. If I'm doing a line, then I'll sort of just let it go like that. That'll really, it doesn't seem like much, but that's what kind of gives it that nice clean look. So for this part, I'll follow along here and I'll just kind of smooth all this out. Oops. I guess I have it so if I make it on an angle, it gets really huge on me. So I'll just try to smooth all that out. I also don't worry about going outside the lines or drawing too dark. I don't worry about that too much because there are certain parts that I'm going to make very dark, and those I'll pay attention to. Like, for example, the eyes, like the eyelids. So that I might go over a lot because I want that to be dark. But for the eye portions, same thing. I just sort of flick the lines in there. And then for the lines I really do want dark, I'll go over. But for the rest of the eye, I'll just flick it in there. Even these little bits here, I'm hardly putting any pressure on the actual canvas. I'm really just, I let this do all the work. I let the size of the brush and I let the opacity do all the work for me. So really, just so you can see, I'm not putting that much pressure. Obviously I don't really hold it this far back, but just as an example. Alright, so this is a lumpy head apparently. So for the ears especially, for big shapes like this, you really want to, that's why I like the big iPad, because it really gives you a chance to really move along with it. So I'm not going to be hunched over and really trying to make that line like that. I just try to make it smooth like that. And I'll just sort of flick it in. That sounds weird. I've been doing a bunch of caracals, and they have these little bits on the end, so that's kind of where that's coming from. They have this like flick in the end. But so for this part right here, just do everything really quick. Even the hairs, like if you're gonna make hairs, I just do everything really, really fast. It doesn't have to be perfect. And just practice that. Just practice doing all these lines really, really quickly, and you'll see a lot of improvement in the way that this sketch actually looks. And also, I just try to make everything flow with the rest of the drawing. Sometimes I do have to go over the lines, but that's okay. So I just do everything, and the rest of it, I'll do everything pretty quickly. And I don't know what kind of creature this actually is. I just made it up, but mainly just to show you how I do my sketches, because some people do them cleaner than me. They have these really clean lines, but I just like to do everything really, really fast. And sometimes I'll throw these little bits, like, so I was doing this, instead of doing this for the hair, I'll sort of switch it up. I'll do one, then I'll do one loop. And that kind of gives you that illusion of of hair without having to do this type of thing. That can work sometimes, but even like something like that might work. But I don't usually. I try to switch it up, and I really don't do a lot of individual hairs. Like if he's really hairy here, like I try not to do I try not to do this big grouping of hairs. I just try to do. I'm still recording. Even if I just do one or two, is usually good enough. And for a shape like this, like I'll just simplify it into something like that. And have his stomach here. And the rest of this I'll just simplify. Doesn't have to be that crazy. And this is really just going over my sketch. Just keeping everything real loose, and I try to do everything in one looping movement. That one looping movement really helps. I've been drawing a lot of cats, big cats, and they have these things on their eyes which I really like. And that's pretty much it. I just keep it really simple. I'll show you without the coloring. It looks pretty cool. And I usually do, this is another tip that I do the eyes usually behind. And another fun way to do the eyes, instead of going like this, which is not bad, sometimes I like to take any other, let's see if I can find a stock brush so I'm not using the ones that I've already altered. I've altered most of these. Sometimes you can just take like a thick brush and just make the circle like already colored. I find that sometimes that can look pretty cool. Because you don't really need to. You don't always have to. Where was I? Sketching. You don't always have to make the circles like this. So just something else to try. We'll make them looking up. That's not bad. Let me color this in. So definitely download my faves brushes, because in most of my other videos I use these brushes, and they're just like, this is just an airbrush that I sort of tweaked. But anyway, so there's one example. I'll do some more ears, because ears are really fun for me, apparently. So this sketch I was working on, I'll go back to the Procreate pencil. So this caracal, this is what I was talking about with those flared ears that I love. So if I want to make these really nice, I kind of want to do it in one stroke like that. So his ears kind of come out like that. So I'll do it all in one stroke. And I'll do those little flares. And then you can do the detail here really quickly. So for this here, I'm going to start with this line to give me the base. So I'm basically going to be starting like that. And it's almost a basic S shape. And then if you don't, I don't like the way it looks, so there we go. And the key is to just make everything really, really quickly. That's a bad example, so I'm going to start again. But sometimes you don't have to spend too much time on trying to make it a smooth line. Just move quickly, you know? That'll give you a far nicer not illustrative, but like just a nicer look than if you're trying to really focus on making a straight line. You know, that's a very different look than making a smooth line like that. So here's some other tricks. So I'm going to go back to this guy. Where is it? There it is. Oops. Sometimes my Procreate will not respond, unfortunately. There we go. So if you're going to use like let's say, inking, if you're going to use the technical pen, I'll make another layer above. Let me get rid of these eyes and lower the opacity. So for the technical pen, there's a little bit more of like a strategy. So that's something like that. And basically you want to do the same thing, but be okay to move your whole, like draw like with your whole arm. Because if you try to just draw with your fingers, sometimes you'll get stuck because you won't be able to reach. So it's almost like draw with your whole arm, and if you can still flick at the end, and you see how I did that in 2 parts. Try to do everything in 1 or 2 strokes. And just try to stay very, very loose and not have too much weight on your hand. There we go. And still try to simplify your sketch. And for these, you don't have to go over each one. Just use that as a template and do the fast movement, because the fast movement is more important than trying to match your sketch exactly. See, even for this line, like I'm almost not even touching, like I do have this resting a little bit, but I have it so I can move my whole hand on the canvas. And actually, even when I'm moving, like it's very light. Like I have my hand very, very lightly on the canvas. So I'll just finish this up real quickly. So I'm going to use some brushes from my faves brush. I'll just use I'll use my graffiti brush, which is just like a fat airbrush. So another cool thing that you can do is, you can take that airbrush and you can bring it low, and you can sort of like give your whole drawing like a tone. This is what I do a lot in a lot of my art. I give my art like a tone, so it kind of makes it. But that doesn't really. I don't know why I'm doing that. I just get carried away sometimes when I have fun drawing. Let's see, is there anything else I wanted to tell you about drawing? So I usually use Sketchmaster, which is my favorite brush, one of my two favorite brushes to draw with. The lines are pretty smooth as it is. Let's see where I have the streamline for that brush. So I have the streamline at 40%, which means that I can still get a nice, I still have it loose enough to where I can sketch. If streamline is up too much, your sketches will be they'll get sort of pulled, and it won't be fun to draw with. Like if this was there, then it takes away a lot of that. It kind of pulls all the lines. So you don't want to put your streamline up too much. The main thing to practice is just getting more confident with your lines and what you want to do. So if you want to do like shapes, just draw them quicker. The quicker that you can draw your lines, the smoother they'll look. The smoother they'll look. Because also with smoothness, it's this weight that really gives it, like the fact that this is light here, that gives it a certain look as well. It's not always just clean lines. It's the weight of the lines that's very important as well. And it's just something that you'll pick up in time. If you just keep practicing. I don't know what that is, but anyway, yeah. So that's pretty much what I wanted to show you, at least how I do my sketches and things like that. Like you can see, for example, here's another fun sketch I did recently, and it's sort of messy, but the lines are pretty smooth. Like I just keep everything very loose. I don't put too much pressure on my hands. I don't put too much weight on the pencil. I hold it pretty loosely, and my wrist is loose, so I can kind of move with it. Because there's nothing worse than drawing and then you get stuck because you can't really reach a certain point. So where are we at here? So anyway, yeah. So just keep practicing your lines And you can do messy sketches and then practice doing smooth lines over them. But just remember, big movements. You want to kind of do everything in like very flowy movements. The less changes, the better. So if you're doing, so if I was going to do a triangle, the easiest thing would be to get two sides at once versus, getting all of them like that. It just looks very rigid. So just practice flicking your lines and holding everything really, really light, not putting too much pressure. If you need to put too much pressure on your screen, then it's not the right. Then it's a brush setting, or use a different brush. You shouldn't need that much pressure to be to get your lines right. But just practice that. Hopefully this was helpful, and I have a bunch of other tutorial ideas that I'm going to do. So just stay tuned and subscribe and like if you like the video. Alright, one last thing. If you can, please like, subscribe, and share. If you have art friends on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, I'd really, really appreciate it. We all want to learn and grow as artists, and I want to grow my YouTube so I can reach more artists and help more artists, and you can help me do that. So once again, I really appreciate you, and I'll see you in the next one.